Hello again there, internets. It's me, Nicholas Ewan Palavita. So I would like to talk to you about metal gods. And actually, way to kind of, I think this is like super instructive. Like, this is to the point. In my mind, this is very topical for what is going on the Earth right now. And also, I believe that this is something that all of humanity should rally around. All of us should rally around this thing. It is super critical, important. I play chess, so, on a chessboard, there's a theory, and theory is like already known positions. Like, this position has already been played, and it is already known, and it is well known within, like, people that play chess. Like, oh, this is theory, like, we already know that this position happens, and how it happens, and how to get there. And some of the possible moves have already been analyzed, like, once that position has already arisen. And for the Earth, I think that this commandment is, like, issued because we need, well, first of all, it is absurd to think that the Earth is the center of the universe. That is a silly thought, and that is a silly way of looking at the universe. So I think that there was this commandment that was issued, and it is a super key, critical, we've already been here before, position. Like, the Earth is a known game, and this commandment was issued because we already know that we were going to be there. Like, we already knew that this was going to happen. That is the correct and proper thinking of, like, that's just the way that you should look at the world. Like, you should, there's nothing new under the sun. I believe that is from Ecclesiastes. Now, this commandment, useful, tool, something to be used, proper viewing of the world, proper interpretation of current events. This is key, it is critical, it is an ignored commandment. And it is probably why I'm here. Probably one of the many reasons why I'm here. And actually, I am kind of annoyed that I have to go over this, because this should be self-evident, this should be obvious, but of course, self-evident and obvious things, whatever. Like, whatever. So, people live in their imaginations. Absolutely, yes. People live in their imaginations, and because people live in their imaginations, self-evident things might not be so obvious to people. Yeah. So let's go back to the key critical commandment that is given in the Torah that we should rally around as humanity and that we should obey as humanity, and is a big problem that we are not following it as humanity. This commandment was issued 5,075 years ago, and right now it is being ignored. And it is a problem that this commandment is being ignored. Let us go to what this video is about, and this video is about metal gods. And as I've recorded and mentioned on other parts of my website, the Earth is experiencing global, systemic, ecological catastrophe. This is apparent, this is self-evident. When microbes initially evolve and cause disease in an animal, that microbe might kill its host. This is like a well-known phenomenon within the medical community and disease and people that study disease. This is like a well-known thing. I think the easiest example is the flu. Flu season happens every year, and every year that there's new versions of the flu virus, and some of them are benign, some of them are more malignant, but there's always new strains coming out, and the flu virus is always evolving. The biggest problem that we've had with influenza would be, I believe it was in the 1918 Spanish flu season or virus. That was the death toll of that was comparable to World War I and World War II. It was a major disease outbreak, and it killed a lot of people. And that was the flu virus evolving, changing, so that it could sneak past humanity's immune defense systems. I think this has happened with HIV. A newly evolved disease, gets past the human immune system and kills a lot of people, and killed a lot of people in the gay community. Gay people were having sex, and a lot of them died because they were having gay sex. And the HIV virus was a major contributor to that problem back in the 80s. So, and then there are other diseases that evolve and kill lots of people. I think Ebola is another kind of in the news, this disease. I don't know the specifics of the Ebola virus, but part of it is disease evolves or has a flare up, and kind of just kills a person's immune system and is able to cause a very infectious and deadly disease because it evolved, like HIV, Spanish flu. I'm just throwing out examples here. I am not an expert on disease. These are just things that I read, and I'm trying to provide you some topical examples of a disease evolving and killing its host. So when a disease initially evolves, the host doesn't have the immune system responses in place to destroy the infectious microbe. It doesn't have the antibodies. It doesn't have the mechanism in place to combat the disease that has infected it. So something goes out of balance. Typically, the human body has tons of microbes and bacteria and stuff within it all the time, in our digestive tract, in our appendix, on our skin, in our mouths. Microbes are everywhere on us. And normally we live in balance with our microbes, and I'm a fine functioning human being. I do okay. And generally disease is not a problem for me unless I get sick, which happens occasionally. Doesn't happen too often, thank God. But so when that disease evolves, that initial evolution might either make the host sick or kill the host. So here's my model that I'm going to use in this video. Humanity is the microorganism of the earth, and the earth is our host. And we have evolved and are causing disease on our host. If we do not acknowledge ourselves as an infestation and evolve to ensure the health and survival of our host, it will be at the detriment of our progeny. Unlike most infectious diseases, humanity has a mind. We should use the mind to love that which gave birth to us. We should stop harming the earth. The Earth has been accumulating biomass for billions of years. In the past 2,000 years, we have consumed 10% of the 1,000 billion tons of carbon that have been accumulating since the beginning of Earth. I'm kind of combining two ideas here. You can think of the Earth like a battery. You can think of the Earth like a battery that has been charged very slowly over billions of years. The sun's energy is stored in plants and fossil fuels. Plant life captures and stores the sun's energy. Plants on Earth have been accumulating biomass, energy from the sun for billions of years. In the past 2,000 years, we have consumed about 10% of the 1,000 billion tons of carbon that has been accumulated since the beginning of the Earth. As Shramsky said in this article that I will link to on this YouTube page, thermodynamics. These laws are absolute and incontrovertible. We have a limited amount of biomass energy available on the planet. And once it is exhausted, there's absolutely nothing to replace it. And also, to kind of like go along with what he said there, when we consume this biomass, it creates waste and pollutes our environment, which I will get to later. Since 1800, global carbon emissions have skyrocketed. Carbon emissions are a good indicator of biomass consumption. What change on the Earth happened around the year 1800? What changed on the Earth around the year 1800? What changed on the Earth around the year 1800? How did civilization evolve around the year 1800? How did civilization evolve around the year 1800? Well, if we go to our history books, the Industrial Revolution was the transition to new manufacturing processes in the period from about 1760 to sometime between 1820 and 1840. So, around 1800, the Industrial Revolution took place. So, God, the Father, Big Daddy, please, I beg you, endow me with the commandment to combat this evil. We are consuming too much. We are destroying our earthly habitat. We are burning off the biomass that you have so kindly and generously endowed us with. Please endow me with the commandment to combat this evil. Do not turn to idols or make metal gods for yourselves. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:4. So, do not worship metal gods. Do not worship metal gods. Do not turn to molten gods. This is a commandment given in the Torah. So, the cotton gin. Let's go ahead and examine some of these revolutionary inventions invented since the Industrial Revolution, which was when many metal gods started to appear. Okay, so the cotton gin. In 1793, the year the cotton gin was invented, less than 500,000 pounds of cotton were exported from the United States of America. That increased to 93 million pounds in 1810. So 17 years. It went from 500,000 to 93 million. I'm not going to do the percentage increase in terms of exports of cotton from 1793 to 1810, but that's 10 times, 20 times. And this like increase was mostly thanks to Eli Whitney's cotton gin. Like, the cotton gin was invented in 1793, and in 17 years, you had more than a doubling of cotton production and exports in the United States of America. So the cotton gin is a good example of a metal god that allows humanity to extract resources and consume biomass at an accelerated rate. And this is kind of going to be the theme of this entire video, is that like metal gods allow us to consume more and extract more and like dig deeper than what we could ever imagine with just our hands. Like, metal gods allow us to kind of like really reach into our environment and into our surroundings and extract more resources and do more with less. The next example that I would like to point to is the steam and combustible engine. Steam and other combustible engines run on coal, oil, methane, and other fossil fuels that are derived from biomass. Motor engines, metal gods, are biomass-eating machines and excrete carbon emissions into the air. So these motor engines, we put biomass into them, they consume the biomass, and then they excrete carbon emissions and other emissions into the atmosphere. Millions, probably billions, of these machines are excreting chemicals into the atmosphere, and thus changing the chemical composition of the Earth's atmosphere. These chemicals then fall and change the chemical composition of Earth's bodies of water. Ocean acidification is a big problem. Every time someone turns on their car to go to school, to go to work, to shop, or cruise around town, they are operating a metal god. In the United States of America, there are about 300 million metal gods consuming biomass and changing the chemical composition of Earth's atmosphere. 300 million metal gods are changing the composition of our atmosphere and eating biomass. Like, people that deny global warming or global climate change are, I think this is somewhere in Matthew where he says, they see, but though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not understand. At the same time this is going on. So we're like polluting the atmosphere, and we're changing the chemical composition of our atmosphere, and we're draining the battery of the Earth because we're consuming the biomass. There are about 100 million people in the United States of America that are overweight or obese. So while we are consuming biomass that is polluting the oceans and the atmosphere, while doing that, people aren't moving and they're eating too much, and they have metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is kind of like a classification of diseases, and it's like being overweight or obese, having diabetes, and other health conditions caused by not moving enough and eating too much. And this is caused by worshiping a metal god. And that metal god is your car. If individuals were serious about curbing the disease of metabolic syndrome, they would turn to self-propelled transportation like walking, biking, or rollerblading, and running, etc. Instead of driving your car. See, and okay, right here, I would like to point out that many people make lots of sacrifices to their metal god, their car. They take their earnings from their labor and offer sacrifice to their metal god, Lord, in the form of oil purchased from the gasoline idol, the gasoline corporation, so Chevron, ExxonMobil, and others. People also take many of their worked hours and trade them in for metal god insurance and pay tribute, rent, interest payments, lease, to their metal god supplier, their car dealership. Oh, and by the way, whatever. I'll talk about that later. The United States of America also engaged in 2 wars at the cost of soldiers' lives and a $4 trillion bill to secure access to the United States of America's favorite narcotic, oil. Lives have been offered by the United States of America to use their metal gods. Next topic, refrigeration. Currently, all refrigerants have environmental issues. Refrigerants are either toxic to their environment, deplete the ozone layer, and or harm the atmosphere, and or are flammable. Nearly every single household in the United States of America has a refrigerator, aka a metal god. Every day humanity powers its air conditioners and refrigerators, we are harming humanity's environment through harmful refrigerants and draining the Earth's biomass battery through their constant use. So I live in Florida, and I just I feel absolutely dirty turning on my air conditioner. It used to be that people would go outside and sit on the front porch and use they would design the house around the flow of the air, so the air would just flow through the house and cool the house. And then we started to rely on air conditioners. And air conditioners also cause us to not acclimatize to the environment around us. We use it as a crutch. And it's rather ironic. Global warming is happening. Climate change is happening. And the world is getting warmer. And we're using air conditioners more, which just make the problem worse. It's a cosmic sense of irony. Okay, the chainsaw. The chainsaw, another metal god, allowed humanity to increase and intensify its ability to harvest lumber. Forests generate and store carbon and biomass. Chainsaws remove and burn carbon and biomass. In some parts of the world where there's a rainforest, people slash and burn the forest to have access to dirt for mining of precious metals. So people will slash and burn an area, clear it out, and dump toxic chemicals to extract the gold from the dirt. In Leviticus 26 verse 1, it says, "Do not make idols or set up an image or a sacred stone. Like, do not worship gold in lieu of God. The thing that sustains humanity, and I mean humanity's environment. See, like, I believe that there's as much culpability on the demand side as there is on the supply side, and one of the things that stupid rich Americans should stop doing is chasing after rocks at the expense of humanity's environment. People's demand for gold is destroying the rainforest. It should be axiomatic to not worship a stone or metal. That should be obvious. But again, people live in their imagination, so they might like worship a rock because I don't know why. Oh, because they haven't read the Torah, that's why. Sometimes I sit around and I'm like, has anybody on this planet seen Fern Gully or Avatar? Like, okay, so let's go on to the next metal god, steam shovel. The steam shovel allowed humans to move dirt and rocks at a rate faster than would be possible if the earth was worked by only human hands. Earth extracting tools allow us to work dirt and rocks in an intensive way that exploits our environment. The steam shovel, along with other metal gods listed here, requires the burning of biomass, which contributes to the acidification of our oceans and the release of greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. I won't go into much detail here, but I have read that mining of some minerals involves the use of toxic chemicals, which costs are exorbitant to clean up. As I have said before, it should be obvious and axiomatic to not worship a stone or a rock or metal. So I'm just going to kind of clump these guys together, but agricultural metal gods. Motorized machines allow humans to more intensely work farmland. These motorized machines generally operate on biomass products, oil, coal, natural gas, and other biomass fuels. The tractor, seed drill, threshing machine, and other metal gods allow humans to burn biomass in a more intensive manner in exchange for more food. More food means that we can have more people as long as we have the biomass to burn and haven't changed the climate. So, here's a topic that I always love to discuss, I'll come back to, and that is television. Television is a metal god in nearly every single household in the United States of America. It is an idol that resides in people's place of residence, their temple. Oftentimes, people involved in the industry of worship, like television, will preach against God. These same people will then ask you to obey their commandments as though they were God, and receive tribute for preaching. Corporations, false idols, from the business community, pay human beings to preach on their behalf. Most of what television sells is idol worship. Car commercials, the selling of a metal god, are ubiquitous on television. Plots of television shows reinforce what corporations, false gods, would like their viewers to do, to buy metal gods and unnecessary items of status. These unnecessary items of status often come at the expense of humanity's shared habitat. Commercials that revolve around the industry of car car loan, car insurance, car gadgets are ubiquitous on television. Television also reinforces the norm that it is normal to pay to have a job. Student loan commercials and commercials for colleges that are for profit are ubiquitous. Television show plots that revolve around going to college reinforce this norm. Television shows also reinforce the norm that it is central to life to own a metal god, a car. Here's another one. Nuclear reactors. The theoretical lifetime of life on Earth is 600 million years. Fukushima, Chernobyl, and other nuclear disasters that show nuclear disasters are an existential threat to life on Earth. If a nuclear meltdown happens at its current pace for the next 600 million years, there will be 1 million plus nuclear disasters at the end of 600 million years. I didn't bother to do the math, really, but the point is, Earth needs 0 more nuclear disasters. Earth needs 0 nuclear reactors. I often wonder, how did humanity survive before the advent of nuclear reactors and electric power? Humanity did just fine. So, to kind of like wrap things up and put a bow on top of what's going on here, I'm going to go over an example of a can of one manufactured good. As an instructive and practical example, I will use a can of Coca-Cola as my manufactured good. So, one can of Coca-Cola. So, when a person buys, and another way to read that is when a person pays tribute to the Coca-Cola company for a can of Coca-Cola, what have they just paid tribute to? Well, Coca-Cola, from what I understand, involves the use of the cocoa bean, which requires extensive agricultural practices that are generally unsustainable. These beans are collected from farmers, some of which are subsistence farmers that have never even tasted chocolate. The cocoa beans are collected by people in cars or trucks, a metal god, for transportation to a processing plant. These cocoa beans are then put into a metal god that processes the cocoa bean to prepare for its use to make Coca-Cola. So far, our count is 2 metal gods. For the aluminum can, glass, or plastic bottle to be made requires a metal god that fabricates the bottle, the packaging. The metal god fabricates the packaging. So that's 3 metal gods. And then 4th metal god is the can itself. The packaging for the Coca-Cola, which was prepared by a metal god, is then combined with the beverage. This requires yet another metal god. So that's 6 metal gods. The fully bottled Coca-Cola is then put on a pallet for shipping. I bet a pallet jack was used for that. 7 metal gods. The pallet of Coca-Cola products is then placed on a truck, another metal god, to be shipped to a distribution center. So we're up to 8 metal gods. At the distribution center, they use a pallet jack to remove and store the Coca-Cola products. 9 metal gods. The distribution center has employees that drive to work, use air conditioning, and use other metal gods. Instead of counting all these metal gods, I'm just going to plus 1 here. Just here's another metal god. So we're up to 10 metal gods. I'm also going to plus 1 a metal god here for the employees at the production plant. So, and I'm also sure that I didn't count a metal god somewhere. I'm positive that I missed a metal god somewhere. So I'm just going to plus 1 here. So 11 metal gods. From the distribution center, The Coca-Cola products are put on a truck for their final destination. 12 metal gods. We are up to 12 metal gods now. The final destination is a vending machine. Another metal god. 13 metal gods. The purchaser drove their vehicle to buy a can of Coca-Cola. 14 metal gods. There's another metal god. 14. I am sure that I missed metal god in the production, delivery, and consumption of one can of Coca-Cola somewhere. Please remember, these metal gods generally run on fossil fuels and require fossil fuels to construct. So, to answer the question that I asked to start off this little bit, when a person buys a can of Coca-Cola, what have they just paid tribute to? The answer is, they just paid tribute to a series of metal gods.